Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
You can raise your hand, and if not, we'll send the question sheets around. Anybody?
Oh, yes. Actually, maybe I can just begin by saying something. You asked your name? Who asked? Yeah.
Mike.
Mike. Yeah, Mike asked a really nice question about spiritual culture and Indian culture, and how sometimes it feels like Krishna consciousness is very Indian. So I kind of gave one perspective on the stage of why India is an important place in the history of this world. But the other thing which perhaps I didn't mention on stage, which is really important, is that we get gardens. Which is kind of like more Hawaiian than... sorry, I think this is not Yeah, so just one other thing I wanted to mention actually is that Srila Prabhupada also taught us that spiritual culture is also a flexible culture. Spiritual culture is also an expanding culture. So for example, if you look at things like clothes, then what is a spiritual culture for clothes? Is it just that Indian clothes are spiritual clothes? What Srila Prabhupada actually explained is that spiritual clothes, or the culture of clothes in spiritual culture, is any clothes which are clean, any clothes which are non-agitating, any clothes which fulfill their functional purpose. And so Srila Prabhupada opened up the idea that you could go in any culture all over the world, and if clothes fulfill those purposes, then they can also be said to be spiritual clothes or part of the spiritual culture. Here in South Africa we have a big Indian contingent, so generally you find a lot of Indian food as prasadam. But if you go to the other parts of the world, they may, in our Hare Krishna centers, serve the local cuisine, because any food which gives energy, any food which is healthy, any food which opens up your mind to be a more fertile ground for spiritual consciousness is considered the culture of food in spiritual circles. And so sometimes other types of foods from other culture are not disqualified or sidelined from our spiritual practice. So I just want to also add that becoming Krishna conscious doesn't mean you have to become Indian, which some people may be happy about and some people not, I don't know. I'm kind of Indian, but I grew up in London, so I don't know what that makes me, a Londian or something. So there's some things about India which I really like, and I have to say, there are some things about India which I don't. In India they have these like the loudest sound systems ever. They have like this unlimited capacity to permeate through all the layers of the universe. And I'd be okay without those Indian speakers. Life would be okay. So yeah, Krishna consciousness is really something universal, something anyone from any background can and should be able to practice. And more than the external culture, what we're looking at is whatever culture supports the awakening of spiritual consciousness. So I thought I just wanted to add that on as well, just to your very nice question. Alright, there you go. I gave you guys some time to think. Any questions?
Any questions? There's one be written down right now.
Okay. Now we know who's asking the question. Okay, quick, mix it up. Well, maybe I'll just say something also to give you a bit more time. Shall I? I think we should say something about mothers today because it's Mother's Day. And seeing as they're taking a video, I'll use this as an opportunity to say thank you to my mother. I'll send her this message. Srila Prabhupada said the purest type of love in the world is the love between a mother and a child. They once did a survey to find out how much it would cost to employ a mother. So they calculated how much does a taxi driver cost because the mom drives the kids to school. Calculated how much does a cook cost because the mother cooks 3 times a day. They calculated how much would a cleaner cost because the mother is always there. And then they calculated how much would the overtime cost because the mother is always on call. And you know how much it would cost to employ the average mother in monetary terms? I don't know what it is in rands, but it would cost you in the region of $120,000. That's just the monetary. So Srila Prabhupada, he said the purest type of love in the world is the love between a mother and a child, because the commitment of a mother is practically unparalleled. Even to this day, when I go home to visit my mom, you know the first thing she asks? Where is your laundry? So sometimes I have to go home with like clean clothes because I don't like, and then just like, yeah, okay, just wash these because they're already clean, you know. But she needs to wash something because the mother needs to do something to offer her love. So yeah, we're so fortunate in this world. We're all nourished by my mothers. I shocked my mother. I turned her life upside down. Like, you know, when I told her, Mom, I want to become a mom. But she was very kind and she was very tolerant, and she did try to convince me not to do it. But I lovingly resisted. And she's happy now, so all the mothers can relax here. She's happy. She's doing well. So yes, thank you all the mothers for your service. In Krishna consciousness, we're trying to become selfless. It's such a hard thing to become selfless in this world, because we're constantly always thinking about ourselves. But when we see mothers, then we see a very selfless spirit, and then it reminds us, oh, this is how my devotion should be towards God. So thank you for your example. Very much. Okay, there you go. I've given you more time now. Okay. Anyone? Okay, yeah, here we go.
Maharaj, what should be our position to serve our mother or our parents, and not just our parents, but any relationships that we have? We have limited time, and as you were mentioning earlier, sometimes when we get caught up, we don't have much time. So what should be our position, and what should we do with our time to serve our mother, our parents, and relationships?
Don't become a monk. So what should we do to reciprocate with our mother or our families who have given us so much? Out there on the stage, someone mentioned the hierarchy of needs. So we have physical needs, we have emotional needs, and then we have spiritual needs. So whenever we're trying to show our love towards someone else in this world, we try to serve them on all levels. So try to serve your mother, your loved ones in practical ways. When they go, when they need a pickup from the station, don't just tell them verses from the Bhagavad Gita. Jump in your car and actually pick them up. That would also be nice. So we also can't become so spiritual that we lose touch with reality. So we need to help on a practical level. Help, be kind, help with the housework. I once had a very good friend, once we were eternally connected. He's passed away from this world now, but he was another monk. His name was J.D. Janakinath. I wrote a book on him called The Smiling Monk. When he was 31, he was one of our monks in the monastery. He got cancer, and he only lived for, I think, 5 more years. But his life was very, very beautiful, and he was such a nice person. And I remember once he came to me and he said, "It's Mother's Day. Did you call your mom?" And I was like, "Yeah, I called her." He said, "Did you send her some flowers?" I'm like, "I don't send anyone flowers. I don't do that." He goes, "No, you should send her some flowers." And then he called up the florist and he made sure they sent some flowers to my mom. So that was very nice. So sometimes we just have to be human. We have to serve others by just helping them. Kind acts, random acts of kindness. Then we also try to serve people by emotionally being there. Sometimes again we become so spiritual that we lose touch with our emotions. So sometimes you just need to be kind, you need to be caring, you need to let people just pour out their heart. You need to be a human, you need to be empathetic. This is also another beautiful way to serve people. But then ultimately, yes, we have to give them spiritual benefit. We have to help them to understand that it's not by chance we all came in contact with each other in this life. We all came in contact because there's something we're meant to learn from each other, and there's some spiritual way in which we're meant to help each other. And so try to give your relatives, try to give your mum spiritual benefit. Take her some prasadam. And if you encounter mums or relatives who are against it, "I will not have this Hare Krishna food," then you just spike their drink with Maharita. So some way or other we try to give them spiritual benefit. So this is what it means to serve others. Practically, emotionally, and spiritually. And if we can do all 3, that's the best. Of course, you may ask me, "Yes, Mr. Swami, but what are you doing to practically help your mom?" For that, I have my brother. Of course, I still try to help my mother practically. I dropped them to the airport recently. So yeah, we have to do whatever is in our capacity. Does that help? Mahaprabhu is here as well, so Prabhu, if at any time you also want to share something, please do.
Just open my ears to listen to you. It's very amazing.
Thank you. Okay, we have anonymous questions from, we don't know who wrote them down.
Besides the first question. Okay, so this is a long question, or there's some context to it. I get asked quite often by my friends why some people are born in cities, cultures that know God more deeply than others. As a follow-up to the question of geography versus religion, there is a belief that there are different energy centers on Earth, similar to how we have various chakra centers in our body. and in the various cities globally, different karmas can be lended to. Can this be applied with religion? Some people are born into different faiths and religions to serve particular life goals.
Wow, very interesting question. That one was worth waiting for. So there are different religions around the world, and some people are born into a religious family, some people are born away from any kind of religion. So how does that work? Are there certain energy centers where more spiritual people congregate? The Bhagavad Gita is incredible because the Bhagavad Gita gives us the vision of eternity. The Bhagavad Gita explains that this life is just a chapter, that we've all come from different places and we're all strategically placed in some place in this world, a particular family, a particular society, a particular country, because according to our previous activities, that's the perfect situation which is facilitating our desires. See, God doesn't force himself upon us. If we want to know God, if we're curious and inquisitive and desirous, then what God will do is he'll arrange for us to be in a situation where we can get access to that knowledge. And if we want to forget God, if we want to go solo, and if we want to experience the material world, then God will put us in a situation where we don't have contact with that knowledge. And so man proposes, God disposes. But the beautiful teaching of the Vedic scriptures is that this life is just a chapter. And so everyone will ultimately get that opportunity to connect with God, should they desire it. Some people say the odds are stacked against someone because someone's born in a religious family and someone's an atheist. That means that person gets a head start. But what we understand is that even if someone is born in an atheist family, they can make progression, and then there'll be other lives, other opportunities for them to move forward. Thank you. So like this, yes, there are different religions and there are different places, some places in which religion is more prominent. And we understand that the souls that take birth in those places take birth there because it's a karmic result of their previous activities. I don't know if that answers it. I mean, it wasn't your question. I hope it is helpful.
I know the person that asked the question, so I can ask her.
You can try.
Okay, the next question is, why did we want to leave the spiritual world to enjoy waking
Oh no, I knew someone was going to
Why would we use our free will to leave if we are meant to be happy with Krishna?
If anyone knows the answer to that question, please step up. Srila Prabhupada explains that we all have free will. So free will means that God doesn't lock us into the spiritual world and throw away the key. God always gives us the opportunity to explore and be curious as we may desire. So Srila Prabhupada, the way he often explains it, is not that we were dissatisfied in the spiritual world, but simply that we had a curiosity. And if we had a curiosity, then it's God is duty bound, because he gave us free will and never takes that away, to give us an opportunity to explore that curiosity. So we leave the spiritual world because we want to explore what life would be like separate from God. But then, as they say, curiosity killed the cat. Because then what happens is when we come to the material world, we become more and more implicated and more entangled in a web of complexity. And so this is the way that Srila Prabhupada generally describes it. However, to confuse you more, let me give you another perspective. Let me try to share with you why it's actually impossible to answer this question in a simple English phrase. In Vedic cosmology, there are 14 planetary systems. Are you familiar with this? So we are on the, what we call Bhumandala. This is right in the middle. So like we're right in the middle of the material 14 planetary systems. So what is explained in Vedic cosmology is that as we go up in the universe to higher planetary systems, what happens is that time dilates. Have you heard of time dilation? So what it means is that one day on Brahmaloka, which is the highest planet, is like 6 months in this planet. Even Einstein talked about this, relativity of time. So do you understand? As you go up in the universe, what happens? Time dilates. Then when you get to the edge of the material universe and the spiritual world begins, then time becomes zero. Therefore, the spiritual world is a timeless place. There's a book in the world, The Power of Now. But in the spiritual world, it's not just the power of now, it's the eternal present. There's no time in the spiritual world. Now my question to you is, can you leave a place in which there's no time? Can you leave a place in which there's no time? What do you think? If you say yes, then my next question is going to be when? So in one sense, you can't leave a place that's timeless. And you can't actually re-enter a place that's timeless. It's said when you re-enter the spiritual world, it's like you never left. But you did leave. But you didn't leave. No, you did. You didn't. Therefore, if you try to answer this question as a linear narrative, it doesn't make sense because you're spanning two different time dimensions. So if you try to write the, I don't know if they had it here, but in London they had this program, This Is Your Life. Did you have that program here? Okay. So if you try to write the story of my life, I was in the spiritual world, and then I left, and then I was born in Sandton, and then I met Food for Life, and got the prashadam, and then I went back to Godhead again. It doesn't really make sense because you're spanning two different time dimensions. It doesn't make sense. So that's why this question is so mystical. It's very difficult to understand it. Some people say we never left the spiritual world. Some people said we left the spiritual world. Which one is right? Maybe they're all right. Because it's inconceivable to answer it in English language. Are you getting my point? Like say for example, if I ask you, who's born first? The father or the son? It's not a trick question. Who's born first? The father. Wrong. Because until the son was born, was he a father? First the son has to be born, and then he becomes a father. Right? So now let me ask you, who's born first, the father or the son? The son? Wrong. As soon as the son is born, the father is born. So one is not born before the other, same time. So if I sit here and I say, the father was born before the son, yes, that's true. But then at the very next moment I could say, actually, the son is born before the father. And that's also true. And I could say, actually, they're born at the same time. And that's also true. And someone will say, but you made 3 different statements. And I'll say, yeah, and they're all true. Because English language has limitation in being able to describe eternal, spiritual, metaphysical reality. The semantics of a language are limited in their capacity to describe the totality. I'm trying to develop a poem here. So you get where I'm coming from. So some questions in the spiritual realm will remain mysterious. And perhaps why we came to this world is a question which is of that nature. So a sure way to give yourself a headache is to try to figure out the answer to this question. Instead, focus on how we can get back there. That's the most important. Okay, that was a very British diplomatic answer to a philosophically complex inquiry.
Okay, the next question is, how does one integrate spirituality career-wise?
With great difficulty. With ease, you can do it. Okay, so I gave a whole talk on this the other day, but I'll summarize it for you in 5 words. How do you make your work spiritual? Number 1, resonate. Find a career that's according to your dharma. Don't do something just for money. Don't do just something just for social prestige. Don't do something just so that other people will feel you're successful. Do a type of work that resonates with you, first thing. Second thing is, try to do a type of work which is refined. Try to take up a career that doesn't involve exploitation, that doesn't involve aggression. Try not to base your living upon somebody else's detriment. Try to perform a refined career, number 2. Number 3, results. When you perform a career in this world, then you get certain results. You know, money, influence, knowledge. Try to use those things in service to God. Number 4, remember. Remember that you are not your career. Remember when the clock strikes 5, or if you're an investment banker, 10 p.m. Whenever it is your work ends, remember, let that identity go. Remember that you are not your job, but you are a spiritual being performing that job, and that you have a higher journey that you're on. So never allow the identity of your career to drown out your eternal identity. So number 4, remember. And number 5, remainder. Leave some time outside of your career. Please don't let your career hijack your life. Keep some balance and have a remainder of time outside of your career that you can use for relationships, for spirituality, and for finding mental and physical well-being in your life. And if you do these 5 things, then your work can become integrated in your and very much a part of your spiritual journey. So number 1, the word was? I'm not resonating with your answer. Please say it with more conviction.
Results. Remember.
it slowly went like that. But you got there together. So yeah, think about those 5 things. That's how you can make your work very spiritual.
Okay, another one. Hare Krishna equals spiritual life is no easy journey. What I find lacking in the Krishna consciousness movement is the practical support in terms of daily life struggle. If you are not life struggle, there is no that if you're not negotiated, no guidance, and if you're not well read in Gita, how will you manage depression, stress, and other challenges? Most people end up seeking help from other institutions like a confession room. Why don't we in our movement have this to help starting devotees cope with spiritual life and mundane life?
We should do that. Hare Krishna confession room. Create one at the Sandton temple. Father, I'm sitting. There's a funny story about confession. That one person, he came to the confession booth, so he goes, he gave the list of all of the things he had done, and he said, "Here's a $10 donation." So the father goes, "You are forgiven." Anyway, then he comes the next week with the list of all the bad things he's done, then he gives a $10 donation. So the father goes, "You are forgiven by God's grace." He comes the next week and he gives the full list of everything he's done and gives a $20 donation. So the father goes, "You are forgiven." "But why $20? He said, "Next week I'm on holiday. So I'm just covering up. Advance payment." But this is a serious point. The biggest problem in the world actually is loneliness. If I'm honest with you, even I felt lonely sometimes in my life. Sometimes we can be surrounded by so many people but feel like we don't really connect to anyone significantly. It's called crowded loneliness. Did you know that being lonely is more harmful to your health than smoking 30 cigarettes a day? So we live in a world of loneliness. We live in a world of impersonalism. And shall I tell you the amazing thing? Sometimes it can even happen in a spiritual community. Sometimes even spiritual people are very, very impersonal with each other. And therefore sometimes someone may also come to a Hare Krishna community and not really feel like they connect to anyone. Sometimes you may walk into our temples, I'm just warning you, Sandton isn't like this. And you may feel like nobody even speaks to you. It's a real problem because many of us have been imprisoned into impersonalism. So yes, you need friends. Everyone needs friends. I also need friends. Sometimes there just needs to be people who we can speak to, who we can reveal our heart to. Sometimes you don't even need answers, but you just need someone to share your hopes and fears with. So it's a challenge. And perhaps we need to begin by being friendly towards others. And as you open your heart and express friendship towards others, then many others will come forward and offer their friendship to you. And like this, we need to live in a community of friendship. Because alone, Ekaki Amar Nahi Paya Bal Harinam Sankirtane. One of our Vaishnava poets, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, alone, Ekaki Amar Nahi Paya Bal. Alone, I have no strength. So if you think you're going to do it alone, good luck. It's very, very difficult. But when you have friends, anything's possible. And remember, friends take time. Friends take investment. Friendship takes sacrifice. Friendships are not cheap. So you got to give it time. Otherwise, they say, love at first sight, divorce at first fight. So we tend to just cut off relationships very, very quickly in the world whenever there's some challenge. But work on them, work through them. And if you have many friends in your life, then you're wealthy. There's no other measure of your wealth than how many good friends you have. Because if there are people who are in their heart wishing you well, then know for sure your life is going to go in a good direction. So, yes.
Okay, for the interest of time, we can take 2 questions, and then there's some other formalities that we'd like to perform. So, got one here. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please thank your mom for eventually allowing you to be a traveling sannyasi. Or else it would have been robbed, or else the world would have been robbed of sharing your timeless wisdom with the world. Or we would have been robbed by it. My question, how do we encourage our young children to chant, which requires some stillness and meditation? They seem to prefer kirtan over chanting.
Just to say, I know the person didn't mean it like that, but it's really not my wisdom. Srila Prabhupada came with all the wisdom. Srila Prabhupada invested the totality of his heart into his books. And whatever we are offering is just carrying through what he so powerfully and mercifully brought to this world. So all of our endeavors are just to guide people to the source of the knowledge, which is Srila Prabhupada. So even my Instagram reels don't stop there. Those are just a glimpse. But the real fountain of knowledge is Srila Prabhupada's books, so please always go there. Kids like kirtan, but they don't like japa. I feel like I'm one of those kids. In japa, we come face to face with our mind. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. In kirtan, we can take shelter of the energy of others. In kirtan, we can take shelter of the nice musical melodies. Not my voice. In kirtan, we can take shelter of the beats and the devotion of the person singing. But when we chant japa, all we're faced with is the lack of love in our own heart. Then it's just you and the mantra and your mind. Nothing else. And then we see, how much have I actually understood that Krishna is not different from his name? So japa is hard. One devotee said to me, my mind during japa is like a horror movie. So the mind is very, and so for kids it's difficult. For kids. For Arjuna it was difficult. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam Tashyaham nigraham manye vayuriva sudushkaram. Arjuna said, more difficult than to vayuriva, more difficult to control than the wind. So we're all struggling with japa. Once a new person came to the temple during japa time, like it's sometimes when we're institutionalized, we can't see ourselves, So everyone's there in the temple during japa, so like everyone's in their own world. So so this person's like in there, so then I thought, let me go up and speak to this person. So I sat him down and I said, yeah, we're chanting, we chant the mantra. our philosophy is simple. Chant and be happy. And then at that moment, we all looked around the room. One devotee is like, "Hare Krishna, Krishna." Another devotee was like ready to go in his sleeping bag. So for the first time, I saw the whole room through the eyes of this person. So we're looking, I'm like, yeah, chant and be happy. And then, these guys don't look so happy. So I said, yeah. Chant, struggle, and then be happy. So it's a real struggle with the mind. I think doing japa is the closest thing you get to pure devotional service in this world. Because you don't get anything. Yes, you can give a class and then you laugh at all of my jokes. Thank you. You sing a kirtan and sung the mind. You do a project. You see an amazing festival. And yes, it's all spiritual. But when you chant, you don't get any side benefits. It's just you connecting with Krishna. So japa is so sacred, it's so special, but it's not easy. For those who take it seriously, they become empowered. All advancement, all strength, all compassion, is all coming from the beat back. It's powerful. So, what to do with kids? Maybe you should ask the parents. But I think if we become good examples and not force but inspire, if they see you sitting down chanting with some absorption, then maybe that will be inspiring to them. Maybe they'll do it.
Okay, the last question for today. Hare Krishna Maharaj, how do we help devotees who are burnt out because of their overcommitted service engagement?
That sounds like a question for me. Degamrita Maharaj, he once said something which I really appreciated. He often says many things which I really appreciate, but he said, devotees don't get burnt out because they do too much service. Devotees get burnt out because they don't take care of their sadhana. We live to serve. At the end of our life, all the moments in service, that's what's going to count. Everything else is just transitory. So any moments in service, any moments in which we put our own desires to one side and we say, I go out to try and serve Krishna selflessly, those are in our eternal bank account. So without service, what's the meaning of life? It's boring, it's dry. We wake up to serve. No service means you're living but you're dead. However, to do the best service you can, remember it's also a service to connect with Krishna. One person once said to me, it's nice to be absorbed in many services, but remember it's also a service to be absorbed. Nice to be absorbed in many services, but remember it's a service to be absorbed. So please take time to chant. Please take time to read the Bhagavatam. No, I cannot read the Bhagavatam. Too many services. No. Reading the Bhagavatam is one of your services. And when you read the Bhagavatam, you'll be able to do service with more power, with more presence. So we just have to find balance. And as you become more spiritually inspired, your service will naturally expand. So don't see taking care of your spiritual life and serving Krishna as two mutually or competing aspects. They feed each other and they nourish each other. Thank you everyone for your kindness, for being here, and for your kind attention, and wishing you the best on your journey wherever you go next. Hare Krishna.